1 year to the day can feel like an echo chamber. The date returns, the air thickens, and every gesture acquires the weight of memory. This time, the gesture belongs to the Prince of Wales. Not a speech from a balcony, not a choreographed tableau, a single engagement chosen with surgical care, a visit to the Women's Institute, the very network that threaded his grandmother's life to the ordinary genius of Britain's kitchens, village halls, and stubbornly generous hearts. It is an errand of continuity that doubles as a message. Where the crown breathes, it does so through people. The choice is not accidental. The late sovereign's bond with the WI was never a polite ribbon cut once and forgotten, it was habit and heartbeat. She joined as a teenager in wartime, when ration books were sermons and community was survival. Later, as mistress of Sandringham's rhythms, she showed up as president, year after year, on a Norfolk winter morning, listening, laughing, tasting someone's lemon sponge, asking sensible questions no one had prepared briefing notes for. That and showy consistency is what the prince is stepping into, not to perform a past, but to carry its grammar forward. A solo engagement means standing without the safety rail. No partner to share the frame, no elder to absorb the mythic charge of the moment, no softening chorus. It is deliberate. A year after the nation said its last goodbye, William is choosing the register his grandmother trusted most, the small room where names are remembered and good sense is law. If you understand the Windsor dialect, you know what he is doing. This is not a wreath laid in marble silence, it is a living wreathed conversation, hands shaken, the quiet morale of women who held families together when headlines were louder than pay packets. Meanwhile, the King and Queen have chosen a different register for the same day, the private grammar of Balmoral. That granite refuge has always been two things at once, a relief valve and a reliquary. To mark the anniversary where the loss happened is both faithful and fierce. There, grief is not a spectacle but a ritual of routine, the same paths walked, the same chapel pew at Crathy Kirk, the same sky that does not care for titles. When the monarch and his consort are seen at Sunday service, the image functions as a low note in a hymn, steadying, unadorned, and, to those who listen for it, profoundly loyal to the sovereign who made constancy look easy. This year the note carried a harmony. The Prime Minister, with his wife beside him, shared the pews. It was not theatre. It was the state performing its oldest duet, Crown and government breathing in time on a day that belongs equally to memory and to maintenance. No speeches were necessary. The image, a parish church, a shared bench, a fragile accord, did the explaining. And then, on a parallel track that refuses to merge, there is the younger son. The Wellchild Awards are not a convenient backdrop, they are one of the few constants Harry has kept unbroken. The children and carers he honors each year are immune to the noise that follows him. They do not ask him to be an archetype or a controversy. They ask him to show up and see them. He will. He always has. That, too, is continuity not of pageantry, but of promise. Will the brothers meet? Every time their itineraries cross a map of Britain, the question blooms like an old bruise. This time the answer arrives with the calm of logistics. The Prince of Wales has chosen a day built around duty with a commemorative charge, his hours are spoken for, and the undertow of the date leaves little space for improvisation. The Duke of Sussex travels on a schedule that households, security teams, and hosts have stitched tight. Not this time is not always a verdict, sometimes it is a calendar. There is a temptation to read malice into choreography. Resist it. Real distance rarely announces itself with grand refusals, it accumulates through habits of caution and the sediment of things unsaid. A year on, the family has learned to move without scraping against each other in public, and if we are honest, the public has learned to harvest meaning from their separate roots anyway. The absence of a meeting says less about fury than about the fragility of a bridge no one is ready to test in front of cameras. What, then, does the day actually tell us? First, that the Prince of Wales understands the scale at which legacy becomes legible. Not in gilded rooms or on the world stage, but in a Norfolk hall where women who kept the country going during blackouts and pandemics can spot pretense at 20 paces. He is choosing the exact terrain where his grandmother's authority felt most native, the ordinary. That is not humility as branding, it is strategy as inheritance. Second, that the king and queen are content to keep faith with their private liturgy of remembrance. Balmoral has always been the house where the sovereign puts down the crown's choreography and picks up the habits that make a person real: dogs, walks, prayers, the relief of a meal without protocol. To keep the anniversary within those walls is not withdrawal. It is a way of saying that the monarchy, for all its ceremonies, still knows where it goes when memory hurts. Third, that the sovereign's sons continue to write parallel sentences in the same paragraph. One spends the day burnishing the long thread that ties crown to community, the other keeps a promise to a charity that existed before the family's fracture and will outlive it. The public may hunger for collision or reconciliation. The institutions involved, the monarchy, the government, the charities, are built to endure without either. It also matters that the Women's Institute is not a nostalgia piece. It is a machine for civic competence: campaigners, organizers, fundraisers, bakers who can out-argue ministers when a rural maternity ward is under threat. The late Queen's fondness for the WI was not only sentimental. It was a salute to the stubborn, domestic intelligence that keeps Britain functional when politics misbehave. William showing up there is both tribute and recruitment, a future king acknowledging where the country's spine actually sits. Listen, too, to the silence in Balmoral's photographs. The Queen Consort has learned the discipline of low volume. The King has learned the art of letting a place do the talking. In an age that has taught us to mistrust quiet, their restraint is almost radical. Not every pain needs a broadcast. Not every anniversary requires a new performance. Sometimes the work is to keep walking the same path until it stops hurting, and then to keep walking still. And what of the question that will not die? Will a father and his younger son carve out an hour? Perhaps. Perhaps not. The truth is that private repair does not thrive under public countdowns. If it happens, we won't see it. If it doesn't, we will be offered explanations made of diaries and distances. Either way, the monarchy's function, to bind symbol to service, proceeds. The country is not waiting for brothers to find a room, it is waiting for the crown to find its tone. Days like this suggest it might. By nightfall, the images will be filed: William in a room that smells faintly of floor polish and good cake, head inclined to hear a story without rushing the ending; Charles and Camilla in a granite valley where weather writes the headlines; Harry beneath a banner that asks adults to be brave enough to applaud bravery without pity. 3 chords, 1 day. The song is less dramatic than we have been trained to expect, and more persuasive for it. A year is not long in royal arithmetic. Grief takes the measure of a family differently than it does the rest of us. It has to share the house with duty, and duty does not like rearranging furniture. If there is progress, it shows up as posture, as choice of venue, as the discipline to allow small rooms to do large work. That is what we saw: a future king putting his hand on the same civic wheel his grandmother steered, a reigning king insisting that private rights deserve as much respect as public ones, a younger son continuing a promise that is bigger than any feud. The lesson is plain and useful. Monarchies survive when they remember what they are for. Not to outshine governments. Not to choreograph family dramas for consumption. To give shape to the country's memory and to remind it, gently, that service looks most like ordinary people showing up for each other. The Women's Institute knew that before any of us were born. The late Queen knew it. Today, the Prince of Wales said it again without saying a word. And somewhere in Scotland, in a small church where a hymn can carry a century, the Crown and its elected counterpart shared a pew and called it respect. The rest, the unscheduled meetings, the messages not sent, can wait their turn. The work, as ever, is in the rooms that do not need cameras to matter.